He did not know how to communicate about any kind of tough subject. So if something tough would come up that we had different opinions, then typically we got in an argument about it. And then what I would do is I would end up shutting down and giving him the cold shoulder for however long it took me to get over whatever argument we just had. Because it's normal for us to disagree on something. But what is so cool about it is we are teaching her how to work through that disagreement rather than shut it down, avoid it, and put it under the rug. She was probably 4 when we started to really make a shift in our own relationship. She's 7 now. She got shut down and don't talk. And anytime he would try to control me, I would get more stubborn and more firm in what I was gonna do. And she has that trait in her. Talking about your kids are learning, like you are the example.
Yep.
I would have alluded to something very wrong over here. And if you ask me, I'm gonna be like, I'm fine.
It would be easier for you to stay upset.
Yeah, our emotional intimacy is no longer able to be accessed.
That is so. Hey, I'm Travis.
And I'm Adele.
We hope that through our channel, you will be inspired and motivated so that your marriage will be all that God created it to be. Hey, and welcome back to Coffee and Conversations. Today we're talking about the impact that our marriage has on our children.
I never really thought about that until about a year ago when Haven was having a conversation with me. But she was saying, you and Daddy just don't kiss very much. And I was like, oh, because I feel like we do. But then I got to thinking about it and I'm like, yeah, she doesn't see that side. A lot of times it's after she's gone to bed or when she's not here. And I forget that it's really healthy for kids to see the parents, like, not like we're making out and, you know, getting crazy, but just to see that loving affection in front of her.
She asked you that?
We were having a conversation about our marriage when she told me that.
Yeah, is that what inspired your post today?
Yeah. So by the time this video posts, it'll be a while from the day of the post. So today is the 29th of December, and I posted on Instagram all about the impact that our marriage has on our children. And as I was writing that post, like I felt like the Lord was just really inspiring me, and I want to be a better example for Haven and, you know, what kind of marriage she's going to have in the future. And so we wanted to share that with all of you and pose the question of what are your kids getting from your marriage?
So about 1.5 years ago, I had the biggest impact on me, and it was with Haven, and it was just me and her in the house, and I told her to go do something, and I think she was like stalling and not wanting to do it. And then I finally got I was getting upset, and I finally got on to her, and she said, Daddy, when you look at me like that, it makes me feel like you hate me. And I got to thinking about that, and I was thinking, I wonder what that facial expression is, because I haven't seen it in myself. Like, I don't look in a mirror and look at my facial expression. But that had such a huge impact on me that the way that I talk to her, the way that my body posture is, the way that my body language is when I'm telling her something has a impact on her. And that impact, I was so thankful she shared with me, was when you look at me that way, it makes me feel like you hate me. And that gave me an opportunity to be like, well, I definitely don't hate you. And so I was able to talk with her and still have her do what it is I need her to do, but also me and her have a good conversation, because I don't want her to be left with that. I don't want her to be left with, I hate you or I don't like you. I want her to feel love from her father. And the things I do and the things I say really does have an impact on her.
Yeah, and when we're applying that to marriage, how you respond and act and look at me has an impact on her, whether we recognize it or not. Because if she is seeing us arguing or having a disagreement or something like that, she is watching how we respond to each other. And kids are just like sponges, you know, they soak up everything, both the good and the bad. So if you think, oh, my child is not going to be impacted by that argument I had, it was just a one-time thing. No, they were impacted. And that's what I wrote in this post, is the ways that kids are impacted. So here, if your children are hearing you argue, yelling, using hateful words, disrespect, or harsh words towards your spouse, they are learning several key things. So number one, how they should be treated in their marriage one day. Wow, so important. Number two, how they should treat their own spouse one day. Number three, how they should talk to you as parents. Number four, how they should react in circumstances that happen around them. And number five, how they should talk to other adults in their life. I think for me, number four really stands out, or how they should react in circumstances that happen around them through our interaction together as a married couple. Like, Haven is watching how we process life.
Yeah.
And if we process life and our circumstances with negativity and arguments and not getting along and not showing love, she is learning that's how I should deal with circumstances around me.
It's so true. I was thinking as you're talking, sometimes I assume my child should know how to act. Like, as they grow up, they should just know how to act and be adults, little adults. And I'm the one teaching them, and you're the one teaching our children, and you're teaching your children. And so I was thinking, the way that you and I interact with each other, we're teaching her exactly how she should be treated as a wife. And we're teaching her how she should treat her husband, whenever she gets married. I was also thinking, I am teaching her how her husband should be treating her, like what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. So if I'm degrading you, if I'm yelling at you, if I am
putting me down,
putting you down, she is learning it's okay for her to be put down and degraded as a wife and as a person. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can think back to earlier years when she was born. We did not know how to communicate about any kind of tough subject. So if something tough would come up that we had alternating, like different opinions, then typically we got in an argument about it. And then what I would do is I would end up shutting down and giving him the cold shoulder for however long it took me to get over whatever argument we just had. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, wow, I'm teaching Haven not to have communication by giving a cold shoulder and not communicating with you about certain subjects. And it wasn't safe for us to do that at that point in our marriage. Right. But now I'm just so grateful because she hears us have discussions about things we disagree on, all the time, because it's normal for us to disagree on something. But what is so cool about it is we are teaching her how to work through that disagreement rather than shut it down, avoid it, and put it under the rug, which is just what I learned growing up. That's how you deal with tough circumstances and things that are happening around me that I didn't like, was just put them under a rug. They'll go away.
That's a great point. A lot of times people think like Adele and I have a perfect marriage and that we don't get into disagreements and arguments. And
not true.
Sometimes I've thought the same thing. When I look at people who are marriage influencers or people who are working the marriage ministry, I'm like, they've got it all together. They've got it all figured out. They don't have issues that I have. But here's the truth. Adele and I still have different opinions about almost anything. It is how we relate to each other, how we communicate, how we listen to each other's sides about those opinions that really matters. Whereas you're talking about like the way we used to be is you had an opinion, I had an opinion. If we didn't figure it out, it got swept in the rug because it was too harsh to deal with. Like it was, that was too big of a deal. And then it always came back over and over and over. And we taught our daughter not to communicate when that happened.
Yeah, and we had to really work at shifting that with her because her natural instinct, and what's so crazy is she was probably 4 when we started to really make a shift in our own relationship. She's 7 now. She got shut down and don't talk.
That's right.
And we're still working today to help her let that go and to communicate. The crazy thing about it is your kids are picking up everything from you, whether you want them to or not. It's the way that their brains are designed from ages 0 to 7. And that's just soak it all in, all conversations, everything. So when Haven was 1 and 2 and 3, we were at the worst part of our relationship, and the arguing and the things that she heard going on were not good. And she picked up some of that. So one thing specifically that we're having to work really hard with her to let go is any kind of control. Like she does not like to be controlled, which I think we both have that.
We do.
And anytime he would try to control me, I would get more stubborn and more firm in what I was going to do. And she has that trait in her. And every time I see it, it's such a reminder for me not to be that way and to let things like that go. And it's been such a healing journey for us, for our whole family, to start a new chapter and really work on communicating with each other and in the way that is going to support her life in the future. And that's what I just love about it. And so in this post, we included like what you should be showing your children, what a healthy marriage really looks like. So they should be seeing you love, honor, and respect being shown in your relationships so that they can see a healthy marriage role model. Number 2, showing them what loving affection looks like so they know how to show love to their spouse one day. Number 3, allow them to hear you lifting your spouse up with words in front of them so they hear how to speak to people they love. 4, let them hear you work out your thoughts and how you respond to stressful circumstances so that they too can work through their emotions and thoughts during stressful times. And number 5, let them hear positive words that you speak to other adults in your life so they can learn also how to respect adults and other people in their own life. And so my question to you is, what are your kids learning from you? You know, are they seeing that healthy marriage, or are they seeing an unhealthy role model, an example of what marriage is like? So it's just something for you to really look at. So I have one little story I want to share that really impacted me because my old behaviors showed up and I really wanted to be salty with you.
Yeah.
So one day you went on a walk and you didn't tell me when you would be back, and dinner time was approaching, and rather than just asking you, hey, what time are you going to be back? I allowed that inner roommate chatter to just go on about, he's not even going to tell me when he's coming home. Are we not important? Like, did he just go and assume we would figure out dinner on our own? Like, what do I do? And I wanted to send like a snarky text message and decided not to. And then when I finally reached out to you, I think I said something like, hey, when do you think you'll be home? And you called me and you're like, hey, I'm on the clear other side of the neighborhood and it's already 5:30 and we typically eat no later than 5. And I'm like, you're on the other side of the neighborhood? Like, were you not looking at the time? This was going on in my mind. And I'm like, okay. And you said, so it'll be about 30 minutes before I'm home, or you can come and get me. And I'm like, that puts me out. Like, I'm having to come get you because you didn't watch the time and you didn't communicate with me and all these things. And I just felt this frustration just building up. And I was in the middle of cooking dinner. It was literally 2 minutes from being done and pulling it out of the oven. So then I was faced with a choice. Okay, we can either wait on you to get home for another 30 minutes and the food's cold, or I can come and pick you up in the golf cart and bring you back, and then we can all eat together. So I decided I would go and pick him up. But when I was going to put my shoes on, I was so frustrated with you and just thinking like, I cannot believe you did this to me. And as I was putting my shoes on, I was like, what is going on here? What is this? Why am I so irritated about this? And I recognized, okay, well, in the past, things like this would happen and I felt unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could have just communicated with you and asked you what time you would be back. That way I could plan to make dinner and that would have solved the whole thing. But I allowed my internal chatter to build up this thing that by the time I did find out, I was like looking for you to make me more unimportant.
Yeah.
And so I told Haven, I was like, grab her shoes. We're going to pick up Daddy. And we're in the golf cart and she is loving this little trip that we're on. And she's happy. And she's just like, wee, I love this. And I was like, okay, I have a choice because she's watching me. I can either show how irritated I am at him the whole way to go pick him up, or I can just let it go and have a good time. And so I told Haven, we were having a conversation about it. I was like, I am really fighting not being upset with your dad for not coming home, but it's my fault for not communicating. And so I am going to let that go and I'm not going to let that bother me. And we're going to go have a good time picking up your dad. Mm. And we did. We had a great time. And it wanted to pop up a couple other times that evening, but that is what we're referring to when we're talking about your kids are learning. Like, you are the example. In that moment, I was an example for her. And it could have gone the other way very easily. And I'm just thankful for the Lord's provision and him. Like, he was definitely saying, hey, check this out. And I could feel the enemy was just so strong on me in that moment of just getting all in my head and allowing all these things to interfere with our connection and our love. And because I would have probably ignored you the rest of the night. I wouldn't have told you what's wrong.
Yep.
I would have alluded to something's very wrong over here. And if you ask me, I'm going to be like, I'm fine. Because I want you to know something's wrong, but I don't want to talk about it. I want to sweep it under the rug. But then it just happens over and over and over. And I just find more reasons to be irritated and frustrated and all of that. And so that's just what we're referring to is your kids are watching. So what are they seeing in your marriage?
That was so good. Do you see yourself in that conversation? Because I thank you for sharing that. That was so good because it would be easier for you to stay upset.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to. It felt good to feel all those things. Like, and why that is blows my mind. But it did. It felt good.
You've developed almost 37 years of that.
Yeah.
So it's easier to lean into negativity. It's easier to lean into that confirmation bias. It's way easier to lean into that than to shift and be who it is you're committed to being.
Right.
Because that's not who you're committed to being. You're not committed to being salty.
Right.
You know, you're committed to being an amazing person and wife and mother and a community member. And that's just so great. Especially
over something that small. Right? Like when we look at it, it is something so small that it could have been communicated about and it would have solved all of those problems. But it's the fact that I allowed it to interfere and really get loud in my head, which made it feel big. Like, you did something awful to me.
Yeah.
You made me feel unimportant.
That's good.
And when that happens, it is like survive, protect,
Put
you're
walls up.
not safe. My walls go up, our disconnection happens, and our emotional intimacy is no longer able to be accessed.
That is so good. That's such a small thing that Adele's talking about can be made into something huge. And I'm sure you see that in your own life too. Because when I look back at the things that I get really irritated about, really upset about, the things that disconnect our marriage, they're small. They're little.
It doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't.
So go check out that post. We included 3 questions at the bottom that are worth asking your own children so that you can really figure out, like, what are they getting from you? So I encourage you, I'll put the link below. Go check out that post, read the questions to your kids, and just discover what is there for you and what areas you can really make small shifts and changes in.
We would love to support you any way we can. So reach out to us if we can help you in any way.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next conversation.
Bye.
Bye.
Where today we're going to be talking. What are we talking about?
What is today? The 29th. You're not finished yet. If you found value in this video, please like and comment and let us know what you found value in. We want you to join our community of awesome, like-minded people. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and you'll receive motivational videos that will impact your life and inspire you to be your best self. Speaking of inspirational, there are 2 videos we've attached here for further resources. So thank you for your engagement and joining our community.